It began on a night when Fairmont Crest, that flawless kingdom of wealth and perfection, finally cracked open to reveal the rot underneath. Rain hammered against marble walls as lights flickered like dying stars, and by dawn, one of its most protected daughters had vanished without a trace. In her place, a broken phone, a blood-stained necklace, and a series of white papers pinned to every door, each bearing a countdown to something no one could name. Behind every locked gate, secrets were suffocating, alliances collapsing, and the people who built their lives on lies were about to discover that the real danger wasn't outside their gates, it was already inside. What really happened to Samantha Dupree that night, and who among them was desperate enough to bury the truth before the sun rose again? The rain poured down on Fairmont Crest like a ghostly symphony, the sound of the wind whipping against the iron fences turning the gated community into a sealed world of shadows and dread. Inside, the flickering lights cut through the darkness in broken rhythms, like the last breath of a dying creature. Every house was silent and locked tight, but in Martin's mansion, that silence shattered when something heavy hit the wooden floor. He stepped into the hallway and saw Samantha's phone lying face down, its cracked screen still glowing faintly, casting her name like an omen across the wall. The sight made his heart lurch. The back window was open, rain slapping through the curtains, and in the flash of lightning he saw muddy streaks trailing from the staircase across the tile, disappearing into the yard, drag marks, leading toward the woods. He didn't call for help, didn't alert security. The fear crawling up his spine wasn't that Samantha might be gone, it was that someone he trusted might be involved. Fairmont Crest had no place for coincidences. Everything here was curated, controlled, preserved behind a smile. If one secret spilled, the whole structure could collapse. Martin followed the trail, his shoes sinking in the wet earth, while motion sensors blinked weakly before dying. The rain hammered against the metal roof, each impact syncing with the pounding of his pulse. At the edge of the woods, lightning flared again, revealing something pale caught in the mud, a torn sleeve of white fabric. He picked it up. It was damp, stained, and unmistakably hers. He didn't dare speak her name. The silence around him seemed to watch. In Fairmont Crest, everyone had secrets, but some were buried for good reason. Across the way, in Nathan's mansion, a light flicked on. He stepped inside, his suit soaked through, droplets forming dark marks along the floor. His face was pale, his eyes hollow, a thin line of blood tracing his wrist like a whisper of violence. In the mirror's reflection, his outline trembled, not from cold, but from something unseen just behind him. When he reached the steps, he froze. A gold necklace lay neatly on the mat, speckled with blood, gleaming faintly under the hall light. He didn't need to look twice. He knew whose it was. That same night, every security camera across Fairmont Crest powered on at once. The surveillance feed filled the screens in the control room, and what they captured made the guard on duty stop breathing. Samantha stood in the forest clearing, her white shirt drenched in mud, hair tangled, eyes vacant. Behind her, a shadowed figure advanced, the gait familiar, the posture hauntingly known. The image warped violently, then cut to black. Moments later, when the feed flickered back, every front door in Fairmont Crest bore a white sheet of paper taped at eye level. Each one carried the same spiral-shaped symbol, and beneath it, a countdown. No one knew who placed them there, or when. Fear spread faster than sound. Residents locked their doors, drew their curtains, and waited in the dark, every heartbeat echoing like a question. Martin returned home, drenched and trembling. He set the torn sleeve on the table and stared at it like evidence of a crime he didn't yet understand. Questions burned through his mind: who took her, or did she leave on her own? Why was her phone shattered? Why did the trail stop at the tree line instead of going deeper? The answers had to be buried somewhere in the camera archives he once controlled, yet tonight, even they had turned against him. Nathan sat in the dimness, gripping the bloody necklace so tightly his knuckles blanched. Drops from his wounded wrist splattered the floor, forming a spiral pattern that matched the symbol on the papers. He couldn't tell which terrified him more, losing Samantha, or being discovered for what he might have done in the woods. Every time he blinked, he saw her blank face turning away, her silence heavier than any scream. There was no going back. Not after tonight. At the far end of the gated compound, the lights in Vernon and Anita's house flickered, then went out. They were the first to notice the white papers, and the first to hear the shrill alarm erupting from Nathan's mansion. The sound tore through the rain like a siren of doom. Neighbors peeked through windows, glimpsing the flashing red light from Nathan's property, followed by smoke rising into the storm. None dared step outside. Martin did. He ran through the rain, the cold slashing across his face, his breath breaking. When he burst through Nathan's front door, the alarm suddenly stopped, replaced by a static hiss from the built-in speakers. On the monitor, Samantha appeared again, this time seated in a chair, her eyes fixed on the camera, lips parted as if to speak. Behind her, the same shadow figure raised its hand in a gesture that looked almost deliberate. Then the screen went dark again. The countdown resumed. Outside, the storm began to fade, but the suffocating tension in Fairmont Crest only thickened. Whispers traveled like ghosts through the walls. Some said Samantha had been taken to silence her. Others claimed she'd uncovered a secret tied to Martin's company, one too dangerous to reveal. A few even muttered that Nathan's innocence was a lie, that the blood on the necklace was not only hers. Each version of the story contradicted the next, yet all of them shared the same fear, that the truth, if found, would destroy them all. Martin didn't sleep. He sat before the surveillance wall, scrubbing through corrupted footage. Frames looped and jittered as if manipulated by an invisible hand. In several, a tall figure lingered in the distance, always 10 meters behind Samantha, always just out of focus. At 10:16 p.m., Nathan appeared on one camera, crossing into the woods. Minutes later, the signal died. At that time, Samantha was still alive. A slow, burning realization crawled through Martin's chest. He remembered their recent arguments, Samantha's cryptic text messages, Nathan's strange questions about the Dupree inheritance, questions only someone with hidden motives would ask. Martin's fingers trembled as he clenched his fist. Nathan sat by his window, staring at the soaked garden outside. On his table, a small device displayed the same countdown. 3 hours left. He didn't know who left it, but instinct told him that when it reached 0, something or someone would end. His mind replayed fragments of that night. A flash of light, a scream, a hand gripping his shoulder, then a body falling. Rain and blood blending until everything became one red memory. Near midnight, the power failed across Fairmont Crest. In the total blackness, footsteps echoed. People woke to the rustle of paper and the faint creak of doors. Flashlights swept over the white sheets now turning red, the symbols shifting as if alive. Martin raced to the control center. Every feed was blank. No movement, no light, as if the neighborhood had been erased. Then a door opened behind him. Wind rushed in, carrying a stray sheet that fell to his feet. The spiral symbol was gone. In its place was a single line of text, "The one in your house is not who you think." Cold sweat slid down his neck. He turned, catching a reflection in the glass, someone standing behind him, but when he spun around, there was no one there. From the distance, another alarm blared. Not from Nathan's home this time, from his own. When Martin reached it, his door was ajar, the floor smeared with mud, the walls streaked with something dark. Written in jagged letters, across the plaster, was a message drawn in blood: "Stop looking for her." By sunrise, the storm had broken, but Fairmont Crest was forever changed. Samantha was still missing. Nathan was gone, leaving behind the necklace and the countdown device frozen at midnight. Martin stood in the courtyard, dawn light dull against his hollow face, and for the first time, he understood that his greatest fear wasn't losing his daughter, it was the exposure of his own sins. Because if Samantha ever returned, she would bring with her the truth that could burn everything he built to ashes. In the still air, the white papers fluttered off the doors, drifting down the flooded streets. On one of them, faint but visible, the spiral symbol reappeared, this time completed into a perfect circle. At its center, written in trembling ink, was one name, Martin. And the only question that remained was whether Samantha was running from them or they were running from Samantha. When the sun finally broke through the mist above Fairmont Crest, its light felt cold, as though even daylight refused to touch what had happened there. The manicured lawns, once symbols of luxury and order, were littered with soaked pages and shattered glass. Every home stood silent, curtains drawn, pretending that nothing had changed, yet every heart behind those walls throbbed with the same question: who had crossed the line first? Martin wandered through the courtyard like a ghost, his clothes still damp, his shoes leaving trails of mud on the white stone. The torn sleeve, the countdown, the words scrawled in blood, they replayed in his mind in an endless loop. Somewhere between guilt and fear, he realized that the boundary between victim and villain had blurred beyond recognition. Nathan's absence was an answer in itself, but not the kind that brought peace. The more Martin tried to piece together the fragments of that night, the more he felt watched, as if the house itself was alive, holding its breath for the next secret to surface. As the morning wind scattered the last of the papers, one sheet caught on the gate, fluttering like a warning that refused to fade. The ink had bled in the rain, but one word remained legible: soon. Martin stared at it, his reflection trembling in the iron bars, and for a fleeting second, he thought he saw Samantha's shadow standing behind him. Perhaps it was his guilt. Perhaps it was her. In Fairmont Crest, such distinctions no longer mattered. The gates that once promised safety had become walls of confinement, trapping everyone inside their own deceit. Somewhere deep in the forest, a soft electronic beep echoed, the sound of another device waking, another countdown beginning. And as the neighborhood resumed its illusion of calm, only the crows circling above seemed to know the truth, that the storm had not passed, it had only changed form. The real reckoning was still coming, and this time, no one, not Martin, not Nathan, not anyone who dared to open those gates, would be able to hide from it.